Hoekom is ons so gefassineer deur gruwelike misdade en verhale? Welkom by Prontuit. Kan die werklikheid soveel erger as fiksie wees? Dink maar aan die huis van gruwels, 'n boek oor Landie en haar sibbe wat vir 14 jaar opgesluit was in 'n huis in Springs. Ware verhaal. Griquastad, boeke en 'n fliek gebaseer op die Griquastad moorde. Ware verhaal. En nou Devilsdorp, 'n dokumentêre reeks op Showmax oor die verskriklike Kreersdorp moorde en 'n reeks wat kyksyferrekords laat spat. Hoekom bly ons so gefassineerd met gruwelverhale? Selfs al ken ons in sommige gevalle die ontknoping. Ons het mos reeds die nuus gelees. Ons gesels vanaand oor ware verhale, maar later ook oor fiksie, met onder andere Dion Meyer en Chris Karsten. By my in die ateljee is Louis Averbag, 'n sielkundige van Stellenbosch, wat ook in Devilsdorp te sien is, Dr. Gerard Labuschagne, 'n forensiese sielkundige, kriminoloog en skrywer van The Profiler Diaries, en professor Nikki Velkoff van Wits se departement mediastudies. Sy het ook navorsing gedoen oor satanisme as 'n kulturele fenomeen en sluit via Skype by ons aan. Hallo julle. Dis 'n vreeslike omvattende en opwindende onderwerp. Ek hoop ons kom by alles uit. Gerard, ek gaan net by jou begin en vir jou vra, is dit normaal dat daar hierdie ontploffing van gruwelverhale is op podcasts, TV-reekse, boeke? Was ons nie maar altyd geïnteresseerd nie?
I think we've always had the interest. I think what is different is we have so many different avenues now. You know, as you mentioned, we've got YouTube. I discovered the other day a local young lady who's really just summarizing South African cases, and she has 26,000 viewers on a YouTube channel. And she literally sits at the foot of her bed talking about cases. So I think we've got Twitter, YouTube, we have instant gratification from the media. So I think it's so much more in our faces. And I think as soon as that happens, I think we almost want more and more detail, and people want to outdo each other for keep competing for people's attention about these types of cases. But I think it's always been there. I mean, I came across a book, as I was saying, from 1957, from a guy, Colonel Ulf Buber, who was the head of the South African Police's national detective head by the time he retired, and published a book in 57. And he was writing about serial murder cases that he used to work on, intimate partner murders, etc. And that was back then, and that was a best-selling book.
Nikki, what about the role of the media? If Gerard mentions South African stories, is it mostly so that our fiction is based on true stories? Is it then non-fiction? And why do we publish or have these podcasts after the media coverage was so vast?
Look, there's absolutely nothing particular to South Africa about this kind of thing. You know, the media saturation levels that we have in this country can be quite high, but they don't really compare to a country like the US, which is just awash with media. Most countries in the world that you find right now, most places in the world that have very vibrant media sectors tend to be full of stories of true crime. The question is more, I think, why are we so interested in crime? Why are we so interested in these gory and gruesome stories? And also, what is the role of the media in perpetuating this fascination? What larger social consequences does it have? And I think that, in the context of South Africa, is very interesting, right? We live in an extremely violent country where violence is an everyday occurrence, but yet we all get horrifically overexcited about these particular spectacular instances of violence. What is it about spectacular or astonishing or sensational violence that seems so important to us when we are confronted on an everyday basis with the realities of violence? And this is something I think we need to be thinking about.
Yes. Louis, wat is jou kommentaar daarop?
Yeah, news really reflects what we're fascinated in. If it bleeds, it leads. En ons was nog van altyd af gefassineer met verhale oor monsters. En hierdie is verhale vir volwassenes, dis veeverhale vir volwassenes. Dit is ons monsterverhale. And we programmed to note everything that's wrong. And that's exciting. It's called a negative bias. Ons as mense het 'n ingeboude vooroordeel om negatiewe dinge wat verkeerd is op te let. En ons is mal daaroor. Daar's niks verkeerd daarmee om gefassineerd te wees met hierdie goed nie. Dit is normaal. Dit is ons aard, né? En van kleins af was ons gefassineer deur Die opwinding daarvan. Onthou toe ons wegkruipertjie gespeel het, hide and go seek. The excitement of being stalked and caught by the one that you're hiding from. It's in our nature.
But then, Nikki, would there be a difference between, say, Cecilia Stein from Devilsdorp and a bank robber, say, André Stander? Of course there would be, wouldn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Different types of criminals have different types of appeal. They have different types of interest. The two that you've just cited are both people who have an enormous amount of charisma. So there is a significant connection between them and similarity between them. And I think, Louis pointed to something really important when he says that we are interested in stories of monsters, right? And that is what the media does. It feeds us stories of monsters. But one of the things that fascinates me about this is why are we so interested in stories of monsters? What does the figure of the monster do? And if you think about this in the context of violence in South Africa, right, we have astonishingly high levels of femicide, intimate partner abuse, gender-based violence, child abuse. And a lot of this stuff is being perpetrated by people who don't look monstrous at all. It's just the dude next door. It's just your friend. It's your friend from work. It's your cousin. It's your buddy. None of these people seem like monsters. So when a monstrous case of violence emerges into the press, we all get very, very excited and very overwhelmed and very drawn into that story. And I do wonder if part of the human fixation with stories of monsters is not possibly a way of helping us to deny the fact that a lot of the time this monstrousness is part of all of us, right? That violence is not exceptional and bizarre. For all that you've got your Cecilia Steins, you've got your incredibly charismatic characters who convince people to undertake acts of extreme violent brutality, you also have people who are less exciting and less charismatic and less seemingly monstrous and more normal, who are also capable of extreme violence and brutality. So to my mind, every time the media convinces us to overinvest in a story of violence being part of monstrousness, it gives us a way to say to ourselves, well, I'm not a monster, the people around me are not monsters, I am not at risk, and violence becomes something that stays 2 steps away. So what media sensationalism does is it almost allows us to defer the realities of the societies that we live in.
So Nick is mentioning a sense of relief, I suppose, but there's also a sense of relief that we're not the victim, right? Do you think that plays a part in the sensationalist sort of journey that we take when we watch Devilsdorp?
I think so. It's perhaps in the same way that people watch horror movies. You get that feeling, but it's not you. Although this is a real case that you're perhaps looking at on Devilsdorp, it's not you. They are different to me, so it's okay. But you can get that sense of excitement or whatever it is that you want to personally get out of watching something like that. Some people are just morbid curiosity, sort of gossip mongers who want to know the little gory details. And I think other people are just fascinated by the offender. Some people are fascinated by the crime itself. So I think it's going to be different things for different people. But yes, I think it's a nice, safe way that if it's not me, and the more different these people are to me, the better, because it makes me feel more safe. I think that's also ties in with what Nikki's saying. It's safer when they are made into monsters also, because maybe if it's a monster, I'd be able to recognize it one day. And the reality is, as you point out, I've never arrested a serial murder where the neighbors said, I really thought he was a serial murderer. They all cannot believe it.
Yeah, we're mentioning the word charismatic now as well and the word monster. So how do we unpack the pathology around a perpetrator? It seems like we're simplifying it, Louis.
Ja, ek wil net terugkom na die verligting, want dit is 'n baie belangrike punt, Kobus, en dit gaan saam met die profilering in ons kop van die oortrede. Ons is geweldig verlig dat ons nie die slagoffer is nie. Die woord schadenfreude kom tot sprake hier. So dis nie 'n sadistiese verlustiging in ander mense se leed nie, maar ons is die enigste spesies, lewende spesies, wat weet dat ons nie die dood kan ontsnap nie. Ons is die enigstes wat dit weet. En daar's 'n massiewe verligting om te kan sien, iemand anders het gaan draf en dankie tog, dit was nie ek wat vermoor is nie. Maar soos Gerard baie goed sê, ons is ook verlig dat ons nie die oortreder is nie. Because we know we can actually be sometimes. And there's this morbid taboo paradox that we're caught in. On the one hand, we're very, very interested and excited about all these morbid deeds that other people are committing. But our ethics and our morals don't allow us to really contemplate that too deep. So dit is lekker om op 'n afstand te sit.
Ja.
En net daai een stap weg te kan kry en verlig te wees.
Dankie. Dis nou eers tyd vir handelsnuus en daarna gaan ons wel gesels, wel eers later 'n bietjie oor die patologie. Intussen gaan ons 'n bietjie praat met die skrywers van hierdie Gru-verhale.